Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and wherever you're watching in the world, welcome back to F1 Esports Series Challengers. We're here tonight. Again, we see the 16 of the fastest drivers on PS4. Let them loose around 2 circuits and see who comes out on top tonight. At first, you can see in the background, we head our way to Monza for the Italian Grand Prix for the 7th round of Challengers. Later on tonight, we'll be heading towards Suzuka, 2 legendary circuits, and I've got a legendary co-commentator in the box with me. It's, of course, Mr. Justin Sutton. Justin, how are you tonight?
I am fantastic. I am thrilled to be back here, and I am thrilled to be here for another F1 Esports Challengers event. It is the 4th event out of 5, the 7th and 8th races, and of course we're going to be seeing the PS4, the Xbox One, and the PC drivers all battling it out at these incredible circuits and classic circuits as well. And they offer very, very different challenges. So again, I am especially keen this week.
Oh, absolutely. And of course, if you missed out on the last 2 rounds, we went to Silverstone, and then of course we went to Spa-Francorchamps, and both of those tracks gave us really something to hold on to for at least a month without racing, eh, Justin?
It really did. It's been an incredible year across all the different platforms, across all the different drivers. Everybody has been fantastic. Even the drivers that are coming in and just, we had Martin Stefanko last time. He came in and just put on a show for us. He's not even really in it. He just was here for one race. And it's great to see that even the temporary replacements that are filling in are up to such a high level these days that we're pretty much guaranteed good racing no matter what.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm sure we'll be having the great pleasure of giving you that race and giving you that action when we get there. Of course, we should probably take you through how the standings look right about now as we head in towards event number 4 for rounds 7 and 8. And there you can see Time and Shooter is at the top of the standings on 96 points. Domenico Lavecchi is in 2nd place, just only 4 points behind. And then you can see it gets really tight towards the bottom of that top 6. It's Valentin Bruffer, Matthias Van Erven, Duncan Hoffman, Marcel Oldstadt, all currently within the top 6. Then you've got the likes of Yamalo and Klasani not very far away at all. Guillaume Darunia there in 9th place, and Isaac Hajar rounding off the top 10. We'll take you through then the rest of the standings to complete the row. We've got there Perez in 11th place, Gianpietro Oggiano, Diego Rossi, Villa Hammerline, Simeone Yamotti, and Samuel Corby, who's filling in as a replacement tonight. And it will be his, he didn't get long for the call-up, so I'm sure he's going to be practicing, I think, as we speak, to be honest with you. We might as well try and get a few laps for him in. But, you know, he wouldn't have been called on if he wasn't a quick driver. So let's see how he gets on tonight, eh, Justin?
Yeah, exactly. As you say, anybody that gets called upon has shown that they have the pace to be competitive. It's so incredibly tight from top to bottom throughout the field. And again, for people that are just temporarily filling in, it's really amazing the level of esports and driving that we've been privy to this season. It's been absolutely incredible, and I'm really looking forward to this one. Again, 2 very, very different circuits, yet 2 classics that everybody knows so well, and I think it's going to be a real treat for all of us watching at home, and of course everybody is at home, even us as well. But yeah, we're in for a real treat. It's going to be a good one. Yeah, the PS4, of course, kicking us off, but again, all 3 days this week are going to be top notch, I bet.
They really are, and we're heading to 2 of the most famous circuits in Formula 1. We head first to Monza, of course. It's been on and off the calendar, but more often on the calendar. Such a great place to go. They don't call it the Temple of Speed for nothing.
Yeah, lots of overtaking locations, high speeds, heavy braking zones as well too. The scene of one of my favorite F1 Esports Challengers races of all time, where we had the 0 stop on intermediates in the rainy conditions. It's just it's a very different sort of place. It's unlike any other track on the calendar these days, and part of that is because of just how old it is. It's a unique challenge for these guys, and it's going to be a tough one for them to be successful here. You don't necessarily have to qualify well. We've seen that before in the past here at Monza. Again, you can really work your way up the field, but it's going to be super helpful for anybody that can manage that. And if you're not confident of a high starting position, you're probably going to be thinking about that low downforce setup.
Yes, and low downforce is going to be crucial going around here for sure. Well, you've got to try and find that balance, really, haven't you? You've got the low downforce there, of course, try and get the straight line speed that you need, but you've got some medium speed corners, the likes of Curva Grande, the two Lesmos at the top of the circuit, no less Ascari, which really asks so much of the car in terms of grip. Finding that perfect balance and perfect sacrifice between grip and speed is going to be critical here.
Yeah, it really is. And again, you do want that high top end in order to defend as well too, not just for overtaking, but to defend as well. Because if you put on too much downforce, of course, you're just going to be a sitting duck by the cars behind when they act, especially when they activate the DRS. It's just going to like taking candy from a baby. That would be. So you really got to be thinking ahead about where you're going to qualify, where you did qualify, making adjustments, and also whether or not it might rain as well too. You know, we've seen some precipitation come into play in previous races so far this season, and certainly we could see that again this week at both of the circuits.
You have to say as well, qualifying at Monza, I mean, it's had its history, especially recently, hasn't it, Justin? Hopefully we don't see anything like that tonight. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, I don't think we'll see that in F1 Esports, but one thing that certainly is going to be on the back of the mind of the drivers and probably a number of the spectators as well is going to be turn 1 at Monza. That is famous for video games as being a problem area, shall we say. Now it's gotten cleaner and better throughout the years, as we've seen, because Monza has been featured a lot in F1 Esports, actually, and we've seen how it's improved over the years and stuff like that. But still, again, you know, it's such a heavy braking zone, and you're at an odd speed coming off from the standing start. So, you know, you're not braking at your normal position. If you're going out there and you're turning laps like it's a race, you're braking at around the same point every time, give or take, depending on tires and how worn they are. But that first time going in on the cold tires, we may see a bit of carbon fiber being strewn about on the circuit.
Well, maybe. Let's fingers crossed hope not, because all the drivers will be wanting to get as many points as possible. Mathematically, everyone still has a chance to get into that top 6, so we should probably head into that first qualifying session. But before that, let's take a closer look at the track we're going to be racing on tonight. Of course, it is the legendary Monza circuit. 5.793 kilometers, covers about 3.5 miles, around 11 turns of what is some famous tarmac. As you can see, lots of high-speed corners. And of course, you've got the Lesmos at the top of the circuit, and of course the sweeping section of Ascari to keep you on your toes. And then of course the final 11th corner at the Parabolica. Such a demanding corner, lap after lap. And see if your tyres and the aero can hold out and give you as much speed as possible through there. That's enough talking about the track. Let's see what's going on out on track in this qualifying session, and let's find out what the weather's like. Oh, it's glorious. Sunshine beaming down on some legendary Monza tarmac. This should really give us a chance to see these cars and these drivers at their very best.
Yeah, this is really what Formula One cars are designed for, and it's always a pleasure to see cars going through Ascari in particular and just really working that downforce. Parabolica these days as well is quite an interesting one to see the cars manage with the excessive levels of downforce that we have these days. But we are expecting certainly the first chicane and the second chicane probably to be the most likely overtaking locations. However, we have a bit of a history going on at this point, Kieran, don't we, of talking about where the overtaking locations are, and then the drivers just throwing that out the window and overtaking anywhere where they please, really, it seems, has been the theme of this year. So yeah, we do expect the first and second chicanes, those are going to be the most likely overtaking locations, with a little bit of help from DRS and all that kind of stuff. But certainly we're going to see some side-by-side at some point into Ascari, into Parabolica, into the Lesmos even.
Yeah, it's almost tradition when you say that, isn't it? Where we pick out these places. Oh yeah, this could be a good overtaking opportunity. This could, and then they just overtake a completely different place we didn't think was possible. As Dario sets a new fastest lap time, 1:17.755, puts him provisionally top of the table there, with Domi across the line of 1:18.0, and the lap times are coming in thick and fast right about now as we see drivers just get their first lap in there. That is Oldstadt in second place there. Schumacher 1:17.791, putting himself on the front row of the grid. He's then displaced there by Duncan Hoffman, who now finds himself onto the front row. And I think these times are going to keep on changing faster than I can read them out, Justin.
Exactly. It's a short lap here as well. Again, that's mainly due to the high-speed nature of the circuit. So it's only taken these guys 77 seconds or thereabouts in order to complete a lap. So it's very, very short, which means that they're not under a ton of pressure as well, which is why we see with just over 13 and a half minutes remaining, a number of drivers in the pits. A lot of cars still haven't set times yet, but that's, again, not a problem whatsoever. Plenty of time. And in fact, you know, they're more restricted on the tires and the amount of tire compounds and all that kind of stuff that they have available to them, rather than the amount of time for them to get out there in this qualifying. Of course, we've got the full 18-minute qualifying session for the race here at Monza. For the second race coming up later on at Suzuka, we will have the one-shot qualifying. Again, one of my favorite parts of the 2021 Challengers season. I think it's been a real welcome addition. It's one of those things that you can't do. You know, you can't have 16 cars stacked on top of each other for qualifying in real life, but that is something we can do for F1 Esports, and it has been fantastic. A number of cars coming back into the pits. No big surprises there. Vasta Racer with the quickest time, but Dario's time, interestingly enough, first time on the board, good enough for second quickest as it stands right now, with only 6 drivers yet to put a time on the board.
Yeah, and in theory, of course, as the track starts to develop and it starts to sort of, you know, get from that green stage, starts to rubber up a little bit, in theory you should get some faster times, especially through these high speed sections, whereas there's a little more grip out on the circuit. There you can see there is Nardi making his way now up towards the final corner. That's Bernardo Perez making his way now in towards the final corner. 12th place in the standings so far, 20 points, and to be honest with you, from that top 6 he's only 22 points behind with only 4 rounds to go. It's going to be a tight turnaround if he wants to make it, but by no means is that not possible.
And also, worth pointing out that the driver that's missing today, Javi Vera, he is 8th in the standings, but he was only 1 point away from Schumacher for that 6th place position. So he was one of those key drivers in that battle for the top 6, and he's not going to be taking part in either of the races today due to a broken wheel, which is always unfortunate. That's the worst possible reason. It's completely out of his control. And yeah, he was stuck right in it. You know, again in 8th position, only 1 point behind 6th, and that is great news for Klasani and Darunya and Isaac Hajar. You know, all these other guys that are just behind. They've got 2 races here, 2 opportunities to score enough points to overhaul Javi Vera and just put them one little bit closer towards that step of making the top 6.
Yeah, and you never want to wish ill of your rivals, but it certainly does help if someone runs afoul, and for this case, unfortunately for Javier Perez, it is his wheel that has just let him down there. The driver we did see there in that Red Bull was Gamer, otherwise known as Samuel Corby. He's filling in for this event only so far, so it's his chance to give us a taste of what we could have had if we had Corby in the car from the very start. But of course, a lot of pressure on some of the drivers when they come in here. We were speaking, of course, to a reserve driver last time out. We call him a reserve driver. He's driven pretty much everything in Martin Stefanko. He was saying about how he was just having fun out here.
Yeah, he was also talking about how quick these guys are, because again, he's a bit of a veteran coming in and just dipping his toes in with these new guys, and he confirmed what we had suspected, which is that this is the fastest group of drivers that we have ever had in Challengers. So the competition continues to get higher and higher. Let's see if Matthias can put in a good time. 5th quickest of 117.9. And that's after quite a number of runs. You know, the track's been rubbered in as well. He couldn't even beat Dario, and again, Dario was the first one to put in a time. But there is Gamer62 and Samuel Corby, and let's see what he can do. He is a part of Comrade Gaming, so he does have a little bit of help. You would expect a little bit of help from his teammates, as it were, but he puts in a 118.0. So again, this is what we're seeing. Drivers just coming in and replacing somebody, and they're right away on the pace.
He was showing Inez before this. He's certainly not showing it now at the time of 118.0. There's his 4/10 off of Vasta Racer, but if you have a look around the board, it's a very respectable time, and that's only his first lap time as well. I'm sure there's even more time to find. We're seeing now Dario make his way towards the line then. Let's see what sort of lap time he can set. It is an out lap, and one thing that drivers might be doing is that when you leave the garage out on these cars on this track, you do have fuel for 2 runs. That sounds weird when you put it that way, but when you have 5 kilos of fuel on board on this car, it can cover more than 1 lap. So you might find that drivers just have 2 out laps, try and burn off a little bit of fuel, make the car as light as possible. The expense of that, though, is that if you finish in the top 10, you have to go onto tyres that are possibly 2 laps old, maybe 3 laps old when you come to the race start. But if you want to get yourself up the order, oh, big moment there from Duncan there as he just about got the back end in check through Ascari there. That is really not the place you want to be losing it. Very well played for him to recover that one.
Yeah, really well done. Oh, as Vasta Racer goes quickest of all, once again, a 117.435 now for him. Let's see if Duncan can better that. No, he's going to be diving into the pit, so not going to be bettering that time just yet. Again, lots of time, though, still on the clock. More than 8 minutes still remaining in this qualifying session, so that's plenty of time. Can probably do 2 more runs, honestly. Again, just with how fast the lap is and how few corners there are, it just makes things very, very easy in qualifying. And there's fewer cars than what you would see like in a full-size F1 race, not by many, but there are a few fewer cars, which just makes things, again, just that little bit easier. And also, again, I have to say, in qualifying, we have seen 0 issues of traffic. As far as I know, I have not heard of any problems with anybody getting held up in traffic, even at the tighter circuits. And this one is much, much easier. You can really see somebody coming up behind you, no problem whatsoever. Let's see what Nardi does as he crosses the line. No, he's actually just starting a lap, I think, possibly, but only 12th quickest at the moment. He's towards the tail end. He's actually a second off of Vasta Racer, so not ideal, but again, plenty of time to put in another quick one.
Plenty of time to put in another quick one as we've got just under 7.5 minutes left of this session to go. And at the moment, it is Valentin Bruffer who is at the top of the table. Yemelo is in second place. We're watching Petrix then come across the line. And this would be to start a new flying lap. So let's ride on board with the man in the Red Bull at the moment, making his way now down towards the Rettifilio chicane, trying to make sure you get the curb on the right-hand side there. Attack that because you do not want to ride that sleeping policeman on the left-hand side of the Rettifilio chicane. Now going our way through the Curva Grande, riding on board then with Gianpietro Oggiano as he makes his way now on towards the Roger chicane, braking just at the 100-meter board, and again trying to make sure that you get the cleanest line through the Roger chicane without really hitting those sleeping policemen. Through the first Lesmo then, and then on towards the second Lesmo, slightly banked both of them. Slower speed through the second Lesmo on entry, but then you can try and use that little bit of banking to try and carry a little bit more speed through. We head now through the Curva del Seraglio, under the old banking, and onwards now towards Ascari, using the curb on the right hand side to open up the corner. Hope that you've got enough rear wing to keep the car in check there. A little bit of a wiggle on the exit of the third part of Ascari, and the short run now up towards Parabolica. Plenty of time now to think about your braking point here, looking at the left hand side, picking out your braking point, and just ensure you trail brake all the way through the corner, using a little bit of AstroTurf on the left hand side, then as close to the Carras as you can to make the run as short as possible.
Tidy.
Is nice. Third place there from Petrux, 1:17.6. That really is a flying lap around Monza.
Yeah, that was fantastic. Really, really tidy lap. As you said, a little bit nervous at the exit of Ascari, but I mean, if it's not a little bit nervous, are you even really wringing everything out of the car? So it's great to see him pushing just that little bit hard through Ascari and, yeah, just wiggling. But, you know, kept it under control. Nice and tidy lap. Looked very, very clean through a lot of the corners, actually. So, yeah, Petrix, of course, this is a home race for him. It's the home race for a number of the drivers, actually, a lot of drivers, actually, on the PS4 side in particular. So, yeah, I imagine he is especially interested in picking up a good result here. I do wonder if we're going to see a bit of Italian dominance in the opening round for today's event. Again, we do have 2 races, so once this race is over, don't go running away, because we are going to have a race at Suzuka as well. Is Duncan on a lap right now, and is he going to get... Oh, that's Vasta Racer. That's an interesting way of getting out of the way. I think Duncan is on a quick one. That yellow flag at the top left, that will be for Vasta Racer, but again, lots of time left, just under 5 minutes to go in this qualifying session. Plenty of time for everybody. Get back in, put on a new set of tires, get back out, and set one final lap.
Yep, and here comes Duncan then into the pit lane. So that's Hoffland then doing as you say there, Justin, pitting in for a set of tyres, as there is Vasta Racer currently on provisional pole position. Then Valentin Bruffer starts a new flying lap, but you can see there Matthias has really closed that gap down within a tenth of a second. 17.442 from Matthias Van Erven puts himself within, what's that, 8 thousandths of a second of provisional pole position. That's not bad at all. Marcel Olstadt is in 3rd place there with Dario Yemelo in 4th place. Timon Shooter in 5th place with Oggiano rounding off the top 6. Riding on board now with Bruffo as he now makes his way on towards the Lesmos. Through the first Lesmo, chucking the car in 5th gear here. Don't be greedy with the curb on the exit there. And then you make your way through the second Lesmo down to 4th briefly before you go back up to 5th to reduce the wheel spin on exit. Now DRS is wide open as we make our way now down the Curva del Seraglio, underneath the old banking and towards Ascari once again using that curve on the right hand side to open up the corners, and we make our way through there. That looked like a much more really confident car, and a car that's confident leads to a driver that's confident as well, as we make our way on the approach towards Parabolica, braking just at that 50-meter board, maybe even beyond it, to have a little bit of trail braking through the corner as well. Why not? Wide as you can on there, and then straight into the pits. Never mind then. Forget I said anything.
I do wonder. Yeah, I think he's got enough time to get back out there. So I don't think it's over just yet. Yeah, he's going to be okay. On board with Domi though, Domenico Levecce, another Italian driver who's going to be under a bit of pressure. Some drivers they really flourish for their home race, and other drivers kind of collapse underneath the pressure. Certainly, as a Sergio Perez fan, I know he's not had the best of results in Mexico so far, but maybe he can change that this year. But VSR Domi, he's going to be looking for a good result here. Is he going to be heading back into the pits? Yes, he is. Again, I think he's got enough time. He's going to have to get in and out pretty quickly here. You can see the vast majority of cars are in the pits at the moment. In fact, Gil and the only drivers out on the track at the moment. So, okay, well, I did predict that we weren't going to have any problems in qualifying. Now I'm not so sure, Kieran. I'm going to blame you for this one. I think you jinx this one if we run into any problems.
I mean, that's just normal, really, isn't it, Justin? It really is. I mean, we blame you for the curses. We blame me for everything else. I think that's how it goes here. But yeah, there is Guillaume Darunia making his way now very slowly towards the Ascari chicane. He's let through one of the Red Bulls there, and that is going to be Petrix there. So that's Giano he's let through. And just trying to get a little bit of space out there, and no one taking me up on my 2-lap offer. So everyone's going to go out there with one run, see how they all get on. But we're looking at the last 90 seconds here. Should be a really exciting end to this qualifying session, with less than a 100th of a second between the top 2 drivers in this qualifying session alone. I can't wait to see how this all ends.
What is that, a 10th and a half between the top 5? It's extremely close. And then, less than a 10th between for the next 2 drivers. Interestingly, Timon down in 6th position, so that's a little bit lower down than we expected. But this is going to be the final attempt for Gil. No opportunity to get back around, and the checker flag will be out by the time he gets around. So this will be the final attempt for the Racing Point. Currently in 12th position, just over a 118.0. But he can find a lot of positions just by getting a little bit quicker. Really does not need to find a whole ton of time. And to be honest, there isn't a ton of time to find out there, just because there aren't that many corners. Ooh, he has definitely backed out of that one, and I think that's going to be the end of qualifying for him.
It could be. He only gave himself that one run as well, so that could be the end of it if he's made a mistake that's cost him a lot of time. There is Timon Shooter, our Challengers Series leader at the moment, as he makes his way through the Rettifilio chicane onwards now towards the Curva Grande. And normally you can tell from very early on if a driver abandons their lap time, but it looks like Shooter there is absolutely on it right now. He's only just over 2/10 off of that provisional pole position, so expect him to see attacking all the way through, up the gears there to try and reduce the wheel spin on the exit of the Roger chicane. Making our way now through the Lesmos, through the first Lesmo, then towards the second Lesmo, just trying to make sure you use as much of the track on the left-hand side as possible, as we now make our way now through the Curva del Seraglio, riding on board over the shoulder with Timon Shooter underneath the old banking, and then onwards then towards Ascari, using that curve on the right-hand side. Then we make our way through. How's this car looking on the exit? Very nice indeed. Looks planted through there, as we now make our way up towards, once again, Parabolica. Underneath the trees there, that little bit of shade on the track. Checkered flag is out then as Gamer finishes in P9 at the very least. Matthias comes back to the pits. He will not be improving on that lap time. Here comes Timon Shooter then. Can he improve on his? He can. He goes 5th fastest, 1:17.586 from the Challengers leader at the moment. So that's not really where I expected him to be at this point. However, All to do in the race then. Here is Oldstadt making his way through Ascari, then making his way through that left, right, left. Onwards then towards Parabolica once again. Dario Yemelo has taken the checkered flag. He qualifies no higher than third place. This is Oldstadt's chance to get himself higher than fourth place on the grid. He's got a couple of cars behind as well, outside of the top 10, looking to try and get into that top 10. Here comes Oldstadt then towards that start-finish line, making the run as short as possible. He goes provisional pole position, 17.3 from Marcel Oldstadt, puts himself onto that top spot. Can anybody try and get close to that? Prinent has backed out of his lap. It won't be him. And if I'm seeing this right, everybody's either finished their lap or come back to the pit lane. So Marcel Oldstadt with a 1:17.343 is going to be starting from pole position for the Italian Grand Prix.
He pulled a blinder on that one, only by a couple hundredths of a second to Vasta Racer in the Ferrari, who was looking fastest all session long. In the end, 21 thousandths of a second between the two of them. Absolutely incredible stuff. Really, really impressive qualifying from everybody. In the end, Nardi could not improve, so his time isn't really representative. He never got another time on the board. So in the end, it was actually quite close from pretty much top to bottom. Really, really tight qualifying session, which is exactly what we expect at Monza. Again, not a whole lot of corners, so that really does tighten things up. There it is. You can see less than 8/10 for the top 14. Impressive stuff.
Fantastic stuff to see. It just gives us a real good race to look forward to. 13 laps coming up very, very shortly. But of course, it is Marcel Oldstadt on pole position. Valentin Bruffer is in second place with Matthias van Erven rounding off at the top three. The top three separated by less than a tenth of a second. It's Dario in fourth. It's Time in fifth. Dobby in sixth with Duncan in seventh. Simo in eighth. Petrix ninth. And Gamer on debut rounding off the top 10. It's Name Changer in 11th. Gil in 12th. Prinenz in 13th place. Boss rounding up the top 14 as it stands. But yeah, as you say there, Justin, just the top 14 covered by less than 8/10 of a second gives us a really good sign about what this race is going to be like coming up.
Yeah, really, really excited about this one. And again, you know, it's tough to break away here. The slipstream is so strong. The DRS is so strong. It can be really, really, really tough to break away. Ooh, that is a little bit ominous, I would say, in the sky there. But it does look like it's at least going to be dry for the start of the race. We'll see, of course, if any weather is going to play a factor a little bit later on. But it looks like they're going to be starting anyway on the slick, dry compound of tires. And then they'll be moving on later in the race into something else. So interesting to see what the conditions will be for the start of this race. And as you say, really, really looking forward to this one. It's going to be extremely competitive. Yeah, just looking at the weather, yeah, it looks like it is going to be dry. It's going to be overcast, but it is going to be dry, is what I'm being told. So yeah, unfortunately, it's not likely that we'll see any sort of precipitation. It would be nice if we do, but it's going to be a great race regardless.
It is indeed, as we count down then to round number 7 of Esports Challengers here on the PS4. We're about to get underway very, very shortly at the Italian Grand Prix. So we get the cars to the grid then, and we go through their starting procedure as we await for those 5 red lights. Here they are. And here we go. What are the starts like then? Marcel Oldstadt gets a great start off the line. Then Valentin Bruffer has got to try and attack from the very off. Van Erven's got to do the same. But look at that start from Yemelo then. He started from 4th place. He's up the inside there. We're almost going 3 wide in. As you can see there, Yemelo had to cut across the curb there. He's lost all that momentum he gained at the very start. The 2 Ferraris, meanwhile, going side by side. They're not teammates, by the way. They are every man for themselves. Van Erven going round the outside at Curva Grande. But Bruffer's got the inside line. And there you can see Van Erven backs out of that as we head towards the Roger chicane. Looks like everyone made it through the Rettifilio chicane without a scratch. So really good driving all around there. It's Oldstadt holding on to his lead right now. Bruffer in second with Matthias van Erven in 4th place. We're riding on board with Dario Yemelo in 4th place. And Time and Shooter is in 5th. It's Dobby in 6th, Duncan 7th, Simo 8th, Petrix in 9th, and Gamer rounding up the top 10. Gotta say, really good start from all around.
Incredibly clean start, and almost no changes of position as well, and in fact 0 changes of position in the top 10. Prinens, who takes another scalp, is the only person that's actually making up any sort of positions, up to 11th now from 13th on the grid. So Prinens has had an excellent start. Bit of a gap actually starting to form, so Prinens needs to close that down. Name changer right there with him. So lots of racing still to do, obviously. 12 more laps here at Monza, but a very, very clean start, very fast start, and Schumacher's looking strong. But again, no DRS just yet.
No, not at all. We don't get that until lap 3 of this race then, as Name Changer gets a 5-second penalty for a severe collision with Prinens. Now, that's further down the order then. Both cars are in the pit lane, so I can only assume that's coming and happened right at the very start of the pit lane. They all started outside of the top 10, so they all started on the medium tyre. So Prinens and Name Changer now pitting in very early, going on a set of soft tyres. Surely they can't make those last to the end.
Well, I'm going to assume, because, yeah, I think you're right, as Falcon Nardi overhauls Boss 92 for 12th position. But, yeah, I think you were right. I think that contact happened at the pit lane entrance, which would mean they weren't that was a scheduled pit stop. They weren't pitting as a result of the contact. The contact was a result of the pitting, I think, is what happened there. So, interestingly, I'm going to assume that these guys do think that, or they're getting some other form of weather report that's saying that it is gonna rain or something like that. So they're just chucking on a set of softs, and that'll take them to whenever it does start to rain. It's a tough one, but yeah, certainly it's possible. Again, there's not a ton of corners here at Monza, so I think the rest of the medium runners will be able to answer this question. Are we going to see any other medium runners coming into the pits on this lap? Yes, we do. We do. So that tells me, oh, that's not good for Boss 92, though. 5-second speeding in the pits penalty. That'll be applied at the end of the race, obviously, assuming he doesn't pit again. But yeah, that tells me that was the strategy call all along. So interestingly, it seems that the softs really can go the distance here. So I assume that means we're probably not going to see the top 10 pitting until possibly lap 10, 11, 12 even, something like that.
Well, we'll have to see how it all pans out. These drivers will have been meticulously practicing their strategy. Which one is the quickest out there? Just see what they can bring to the table. There you can see Sivo then in 8th place, chasing down Duncan ahead of him. He's got Petrox right behind as they make their way now onto the curve del Seraglio. He's got Duncan in his sights. DRS is now wide open. And as you can see here, this might be a common theme for some of these drivers, especially if you're surrounded by drivers. You might find it difficult to overtake. It might be worth trying a different strategy, seeing if clean air can really get you the advantage. Yes, when you've got DRS, it helps you down the straights, but where it's not helping you are the Lesmos and, more importantly, Ascari. That load of dirty air can really affect how the car handles through there. You can not only handle how it handles, but also the tyre wear. We've got another car into the pit lane there. And as we see there is a Haas. I think that's Domi who's trying to size up a move on time. And then as we make our way down towards the Retifido chicane, he looks for it, but then decides not to. Just in the corner of our eyes as we make our way in towards the Retifido chicane for the 4th time. Gil and Petrox are into the pit lane. So there's only 10 drivers left to serve a mandatory stop in this race. But it's Olstadt still leading the way here under a gloomy sky here at Monza.
Petrox, the first of the soft runners to come into the pits, interestingly. So that's completely confused me, because I thought for sure the softs were the better race tire if medium starters are so anxious to get onto the softs so early in this race. I really expected soft runners to go further, but Petrox wanted to get rid of them. He's the only driver in the top 10 that started on the soft compound tires that has been into the pits. He came in at the end of lap 3, so he's going to be looking to do a 10-lap stint on the set of medium tires, which won't be a problem. That's not going to be a problem for him whatsoever in terms of making it to the end, but is that the fastest method? Who knows? I will say quite a gap has formed between the soft starters and the 3-second time penalty for name changer there. Quite a gap has formed between the soft starters and the medium starters. You can see 4 seconds between Gamer and Nardi. So yeah, quite a big difference. Oh, and there we go. Some more soft runners coming into the pit. So that's very interesting. Very different strategies we're seeing here.
Well, we're seeing here that it's, 5.7 kilometers is this circuit. It's almost as long as Silverstone. It just doesn't feel like it with all the straights. So that really does have a play in the amount of tyre wear there will be in this race, but we'll have to wait and see what the top 6 will do. We've got Nardi here, who is the only one now on the medium tyres that started on the mediums, still running on them. So maybe he's not confident that the softs will make it to the end. It's very clear to see, though, that Prinens et al. Are really confident that those tyres can make it. So, yeah, it's all just a game here. They'll have just tried these strategies. As I said before, they'll have put hours into making sure they have the absolute perfect optimal strategy, and then they've got to drive to that delta, they've got to drive to that pace, they've got to drive exactly in that style 13 times. Sounds like a lot of work, and that's because it is.
Yeah, it really is. It's yeah, and as you say, they would have practiced both scenarios, I would have imagined, starting on the mediums, starting on the softs, and even a little bit of practice just with the wet weather compounds and that sort of stuff as well too. That gap continues to grow, by the way, at the front. Still 6 drivers out there on the softs, but we've got Schumacher coming into the pits. Yep, Schumacher is into the pits from the lead of the race. Interestingly, he held on to that lead the entire time. I have to say, I'm very surprised by that one, because I really thought for sure there would be more battling going on at the front. And I think the medium runners, those who started outside the top 10, are maybe a little bit frustrated with the lack of battling that happened in the top 10 during these opening 5 laps, because that's really allowed them to just break away and just make good use of those soft compound tires. So, yeah, really, really interesting pit strategies we're seeing here, different tire compound strategies from the various drivers. Some gaps starting to form. This is not playing out at all like I expected.
No, it's well, we saw Schumacher, Marcel Olstadt come into the pit lane, and as you said, nobody overtook him in that stint, even though he's one of the only drivers out there that didn't have DRS at all. Now, what that leads me to believe is that everybody else behind him is harvesting their ERS. So now you've got Vastaracer, Matthias, Timon. They've been released now as Timon gets a little bit wiggly on the exit of Ascari. Then these drivers will now be using that ERS to try and get the overcut on Olstadt. And overcuts are always tricky. The pit lane entrance in towards Monza is tricky. You know, it's one of the harshest braking zones up there with Silverstone. As we see then Vastaracer come into the pit lane. Then as Matthias, there you go, 20.089, fastest lap of the race so far. Fully supports my theory that he's just absolutely gunning it now.
Yeah, exactly right. And it'll be interesting to see where he's going to come out relative to Vastaracer. Of course, he didn't want to pit on the same lap. Again, these guys are not teammates in any sense of that word, aside from the fact that they share a pit box. That's the only way that they are at all similar whatsoever. As Falconardi decides to finally get rid of his medium tires, he's going to do that at the end of lap 6, so 7 laps then on the soft. So he could push to his heart's content, I would say. With that one, he can really not have to worry about those soft compound tires whatsoever. Oh, a bit of battling going on there between Domi, Duncan, and Timon. Prinens as well, kind of leading that. There's a bit of a gap. Timon, getting right up to the back of Prinens. He's going to have the inside line into the second chicane. He just needs to be a little bit later on the brakes. He's already got track position, and he is going to quite easily take that 5th place spot, actually. So not a lot of battling we've seen so far in this race, but Timon very easily gets past Prinens. Very textbook sort of maneuver there.
Yeah, Timon Shooter using the outside line there and using his better tyres to the advantage as well. So much more grip, so much more confidence. Shooter now up into 5th place. It's up now to Leveche to try and get his way past Prinens, as well as we make our way up towards Ascari as Matthias Van Erven comes into the pit lane. Now the gap between himself and Olstadt is 21.4 seconds. Something tells me they're going to be side by side on the exit. Of course, as you're exiting the pit lane here, you are at a huge disadvantage going down towards the Rettifilio.
Yeah, you get the inside line, but you're just not carrying the momentum. So it'll be interesting to see if he can make it work. He did put in that incredible lap, but there we go, a 119.8. So finding a few tenths of a second is Schumacher relative to that fastest lap time that we saw from Matthias. We're still on board with Domi. Domi very nicely moved to the right-hand side just so we could see up the road a little bit there. But there we go. Vastaracer comes out ahead between the 2 Ferraris. Matthias comes in behind him, and it's 1.5 seconds to Schumacher. That is huge.
That's huge, because that means as well that for Olstadt, he's outside of DRS detection. So that's going to put all the pressure on Bruffer here, because he's got Van Erven behind, who will have DRS. at the moment, Van Erven's going to be a little bit of a sitting duck if he's not careful out there. Got to try and make sure he closes that gap, and he is responding. That gap's now down to 1.3, so he's absolutely going for it as well. He must have been told himself to go quali mode at the moment. Of course, the drivers here don't have any race engineers. They're on their own out there, so he's given himself his own motivation, it seems, and it just seems that Van Erven, Jemelo, Shooter are all willing to happily just benefit from his DRS for a bit.
It's absolutely incredible to me that these guys are their own race engineer as well. You know, their race engineer is their own voice in their head, essentially. And it's incredible that they're able to put in laps like this while working out all the different variables and stuff like that, and trying their best anyway to identify, you know, the best, because you're going to have an ideal situation, but things aren't always going to go to plan. I think Schumacher responding a little bit there to the speed of the Ferrari behind him, as we see Prinens finding the inside line on Timon. Timon a little bit later on the brakes field gets the inside line through the second part of the chicane. His name changer retires from the session down to just 14 cars in this race. Will Timon come under attack from the Alfa Romeo behind as we get down towards the second chicane? I think he will. He's probably going to have to go defensive. He does indeed. Oh, he moves twice. Inside line now for the Alfa Romeo, up the inside, later on the brakes, but a 3-second time penalty for Prinens on that one, so that's not ideal for him.
Not at all. He got the move done, but he's going to pay the price at the end of the race. So we'll have to see how he can get on out there as he now makes his way through the second Lesmo, onwards now through the Curva del Seraglio, and onwards once again towards Ascari. Surely not a move on here for Shooter to try and have a look up the inside. No, Ascari's not a conventional overtaking zone, although count back how many times we've said that in challenges and been proven wrong. It's happened quite a few times. Jemelo is actually outside of DRS zone to Van Erven, but a huge headline here is that Faster Racer is within DRS of Marcel Ulstadt. 0.7 of a second between the two of them there, and that's someone getting a little bit tail happy. It's Prinens, and that is Timon Shooter just moving alongside and taking that position very, very easily indeed with DRS as well. And look who's come to play as well. Domenico Lavecce looking for a move pass. He's going to go around the outside in towards the start of the Rettifido chicane. He has the inside line going through turn 2. Will he have the traction to be able to pull away? They're still running side by side. All the way through we go, through the Curva Grande, and you can see there Prinens still has the inside line. You see Domi's still got the outside line. They're still side by side going down towards the Roger chicane. Prinens on the outside here. He might have to give up on this one, and he's spun. He's spun, and there goes Lavecce as well. And Lavecce is out. He's been collected by another car out there. Oh, a disaster there for Domenico Lavecce. Petrux also retiring from the session as well as Prinens went up the inside. Now you can see Petrux with front wing damage. He decides it's not worth staying in this race. Prinens then starting a little bit of a chain reaction by losing the car on the inside of the second part of the the Roger chicane, and it's taken out at least 2 drivers.
Absolutely insane. That is crazy. And Domenico Lavecce is, of course, second in the championship. I was going to mention, in fact, that it was interesting to me that the 2 championship leaders were running in this race in 5th and 6th position. And I was going to mention that, and then the second chicane happened, and unfortunately, that's put pay to that, which is great news for CRT Timon in 5th position. His biggest competitor is now out of the race.
We now make our way in towards the Rettifido chicane, following Gamer here as he makes his way through turn 2, onwards now towards the Curva Grande, and it's been a good showing so far from Samuel Gordon, up in 7th place.
Yeah, not bad at all. Certainly, I would be happy with that. He's battling for 6th as well too. There could be a couple more championship points on for him here. Oh, getting very, very close into the heavy braking zone for that second chicane, carrying so much speed into there. Falcon Nardi looks really, really keen to try and get past Guile here as well. Just remember, Nardi is on the freshest soft tires out of everybody in this race, so no surprise to see him really hassling that racing point through the corners.
What? Valentin Bruffers really closing into the race lead, but there is Nardi. There's Perez. Perez got to move on. Gil then, as he moves now up into 8th place. His next target will be Gamer right up ahead. As you can see there, Gil is absolutely on maximum attack as we now make our way up towards Parabolica, right and rain again. It's Marcel Ulstadt still leading this race. It's Valentin Bruffer in 2nd place. Matthias Van Erven in 3rd place. Then Dario Jemelo in 4th. It's Timon Shooter in 5th. It's Duncan Hoffland then rounding off the top 6. 6th, and we're watching on Samuel Corby as he tries to chase down that 6th place. Onwards then towards the Rettifilio chicane. Will he attempt to move down the inside here? No, he'll think against it. Quick check of the mirrors as well, just to make sure no one lunges a move down the inside of you, and then you can turn in for the Rettifilio chicane. Penultimate lap of this race then, Olstadt still in the lead, but only by 0.3 of a second.
Yeah, and you have to wonder, are those Ferraris just biding their time? Are they just waiting for lap 13 before they finally strike? And I worry for Schumacher. Oh, as Gamer62 going very, very squiggly there out of that second chicane and moving over to the right-hand side of the circuit, but not coming under any pressure from Nardi. In fact, Nardi is under a lot of pressure from Gil as they make their way out of the Lesmos down towards Ascari. Going to be picking up a bit of slipstream, a bit of DRS as well as they go underneath the old track and into the medium braking zone. They got to get onto the brakes, down to 5th gear briefly for Ascari is what we were seeing from a lot of the drivers. But Nardi looking a little bit stronger there. Yeah, pulling out a bit more of a gap and can focus more on the car ahead rather than the car behind. But about to be starting the final lap of this race here. So, here we go. Battle for the lead.
That's Valentin Bruffa, who's got the left-hand side of Marcel Olstadt. He moves ahead and takes the lead of the Italian Grand Prix. Olstadt now down to 2nd place. And that's Van Erven right behind, missing his braking point in towards the Rettifilio chicane. He's fallen all the way back now. And any chance of him really closing in, he's got to be at least within a second and even closer than that if he wants to take advantage. Bruffa now is going to be on maximum attack towards the end then. This is another qualifying lap for Bruffa as he tries to negotiate this final lap here. And you can see Olstadt is falling away at a rapid rate of knots. Bruffa's not hanging around with this one. He absolutely wants this win. Of course, he got a win at the Netherlands at round number 3, and he wants to build on that even further here at the Italian Grand Prix. Look at this, he's almost a second up the road already, as that is Clasani setting the fastest lap of the race in 19.5, heading towards the end of this race. But there you can see Bruffa trying to get win number 2 on the board, and Olstadt doesn't have anything to respond with up towards Parabolica for the final time. And Bruffa here looks like he'll try and hang on for his 2nd win of the series right about now through Parabolica and on towards the start-finish line. The checkered flag will be waiting for Valentin Bruffa. Last lap charge and takes the victory here at the Italian Grand Prix. A great move then down towards the Rettifilio chicane to take the lead on the last lap. It's Marcel Olstadt getting a 3rd podium of the series in 2nd place. Matthias van Erven finishing off the podium for the Italian Grand Prix. Jemelo in 4th place. Series leader Shooter in 5th place with Duncan Hofland in 6th. A very, very good showing from Samuel Corby, who finishes 7th on debut. Perez in 8th place then. Gil de Runya in 9th. And then it's Boss rounding off the top 10. Well, what an Italian Grand Prix that was. Fast, high octane, and a couple of incidents to speak about as well. That race had a bit of everything.
Yeah, that was really, really strange. I have to say, I'm really surprised about that one. I didn't think the gaps would be so big at the front. I thought the battle that we saw for 5th going on was kind of what the entire field was going to look like. You know, there was that time in the second half of the race where it was just a long train of cars and it got really, really crazy in there. And that's kind of what I expected for the entirety of the field. But no, it was spread out a little bit. Things were very different. And we do have 2 Ferraris on the podium. Yeah, that's an interesting one. Sorry, we do have 2 Ferraris on there, but we don't have any Italians, unfortunately. Dario Jemelo, the highest finishing of the Italians. He was just outside that final podium position in 4th. So yeah, that's where the highest placed Italian driver was able to finish. So we don't have any Italians on the podium, but we do have 2 Ferraris. But again, they're not actual teammates. But whoo, that was wild and crazy. And I imagine the Xbox and PC drivers are going to be really, really interested to see how that all worked out.
Well, absolutely. And let's just give ourselves a brief reminder of the race results. It's Valentin Bruffa taking his 2nd race win of the series from 2nd place to 1st. It's Schumacher then in 2nd place, Matthias in 3rd, Dario in 4th place with Timon in 5th, Duncan in 6th with Gamer in 7th on debut, Nardi in 8th place, Gil in 9th, and Boss rounding off the top 10. Brunensen with the fastest lap. Unfortunately, he finished outside of the top 10, so he doesn't get that bonus point that comes with it, and no one else does. Simo, the last of the finishers, a lap down in 12th place, and in that race, we lost the likes of Petrux and Domi in that incident, and that incident out of the Roger chicane is going to be one of the biggest talking points I think we've had in challenges so far. We've had, a couple of side-by-side moments, but in general, it's been pretty good. This is going to be one of the biggest incidents we've had so far.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right about that. I was really, really surprised to see that, to see how all that shook out. But at the same time, again, we expected a bit of chaos at Monza. We knew that just the high speeds, the heavy braking zones, all of that kind of stuff. It's a bit of a perfect storm, as it were, for incidents. So we expected something was going to happen this week. But yeah, I'm really, really surprised to see how that worked out. It's unfortunate for Schumacher, though, for leading so much of the race, looking so strong as well, too. It's got to be really frustrating, but still a nice haul of points. It's not going to put him into the lead of the championship or anything like that. Again, a pretty big gap coming into this round. So, yeah, he's not going to be moving up a ton of places, but certainly for him and Vaster Racer, that it's going to, just solidify the likelihood of them making it into the top six. They're just going to be feeling that little bit more confident, especially with only 3 races to go for these guys now.
Yeah, and it's coming towards that crunch time, really, isn't it? 3 races to go. When you say it like that, it just sounds like it's flown by. That's because it has. There's been so much great action. But yeah, Bruffa there, that looked like it was a strategic decision from the very start. Obviously, he qualified in 2nd place there, but that looked like he meant that move down in towards the Rettifilio. A little bit of ERS harvesting, making sure that he just stays within that 1 second, that DRS, and then really attack on the last lap. Worked a treat, got his 2nd win.
Yeah, he was really charging up that spirit bomb for a while, essentially, is how I would describe it. He was really preparing that, and I think Marcel Alstadt, he knew it was coming too. I'm sure he was doing everything he could to try and prevent it from happening as well. He was probably sitting there for the entirety of the race thinking about lap 13, and having to deal with everything going on in the race as well too. And he did a fantastic job. The fact that he built that gap in the pit stop phase as well is just really, really impressive to see, you have to say. And for one of the older drivers as well, too, on the grid, he's not a young teenager. He's in his mid-20s compared to all of these guys around him. So great to see him putting in that kind of performance. It's unfortunate that he didn't quite get that win, but you have to say Vaster Racer absolutely deserved that one. Picks up another win. Well done. Great drive.
Yes, absolutely. It's focused now on Matthias van Erven because, of course, he was 4th place coming into this series. 15 points for him in that race. But you really feel into the Rettifilio chicane, he made the one mistake he really couldn't have made or shouldn't have made to try and have a go at 2nd place at least towards the end of that race.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate for Domi because that is going to be a pretty big gap now that's going to start to form between Timon and Domi. Again, 3 races left, so it's not over. He can overhaul that. It's not impossible. It would just be even more incredible if he did it at this stage with that kind of not scoring any points whatsoever. That's tough. That's a tough pill to swallow, especially in a title fight. So he's going to be losing quite a bit of points relative to Timon, who came into this race already as the points leader, with such a small gap between the two of them. But yeah, he looked strong out there. But yeah, it was very interesting to see our 2 championship leaders struggling, barely inside the top 5 in that race. And again, it just really highlights the competitive nature of this 2021 season.
Yeah, you're going to have strong tracks and you're going to have tracks you're not so good at. And maybe for Van Erven, this wasn't a track that was high up his list of really looking forward to. And still, to grab a 3rd place there was fantastic. And as you can see from Domenico Lavecce, he was running okay in the field until the Roger chicane happened. And it looked like there Oggiano got onto the curb on the 2nd part of the chicane and spun the car around, and that just caused a Constantina effect behind them. Anything could do from behind him, at least.
Yeah, the viewing angle on that one wasn't ideal, and I'm sure they will be looking into it if they think it needs to be looked into, and the stewards will have more than one angle and all of that kind of stuff. So certainly we'll update you guys if there's any sort of change to that sort of stuff. But it was tough to judge what was going on in that one because of the onboard that we were on, the kind of like over the shoulder shot that we had for that incident. So it's difficult to exactly describe what happened and who might be at fault and all of that kind of stuff. But thankfully, that's not our job. I'm sure there's people, in the chat and stuff giving their opinion. Yeah, exactly. But thankfully, we're off the hook when it comes to that stuff.
Oh, I love being off the hook for student decisions. Let's have someone else deal with that. But some others to talk about as well. Yemelo as well. He had a pretty decent race out there. 4th place for him, and it moves him further inside that top 6, which is exactly what he wanted to do. Good haul of points from him. Good result. And I think provisionally he's up to 54 points now.
Yeah, exactly right. That's going to be a nice points haul for him, and it should help him get into that top 6 and have a little bit more of a gap. Again, Javi Vera, who came into this week's racing in 8th position on 41 points. He was only 1 point behind Yemelo, so to be able to pick up 12 championship points is absolutely huge. And to outscore a number of the drivers that are ahead of him as well, obviously, that's a big one as well. And to do it at his home track as well. Fantastic. I imagine he's going to be happy about that one. Speaking of which, do we have any drivers? No, we don't have any drivers that want to speak to us after that one. I imagine everybody is preparing for Suzuka. And again, just to remind everybody at home, don't go anywhere. There's still more racing still to come.
Absolutely. We got one shot qualifying. We've got 13 laps of Suzuka. I mean, what more could you ask for? It's going to be great action coming up for you. We'll just have a little bit of a talk because there's still some talking points to have. I'm talking about Samuel Corboy. What a race. 7th place on debut. That's not bad at all for someone who's come in last moment and put in a really good performance.
Yeah, that's really, really solid. A nice haul of points. Less than 10 seconds off of the leader come the end of the race. So we're talking less than 1 second per lap on average difference from the absolute pinnacle, the top guys. So really, really impressive stuff from him. I was really, really happy the way that he was able to come in. We got a replay here actually of this was lap 10. This was that incident. Oh yeah. And you can see just how, we couldn't quite see it from the onboard that we had earlier, but we could see just how devastating that was actually to the midfield. A lot more cars were in fact affected by that incident than I had initially thought. So good to see the replay on that. I'm still not saying who's at fault, but I was not aware that it had been so disruptive.
Yeah, taking out one driver on the fly, another driver deciding it wasn't worth it with 4 laps to go to carry on. Didn't see him scoring any points in a couple of closing laps. But yeah, it really did shake up the back end of the field. So we're talking, the 9th and the 10th places. You get drivers up there who really wanted to try and take advantage of that one. Obviously now we're thinking going in towards the next race at Suzuka. Classic track. I'm looking forward to this one, that's for sure. Why don't we see if we can see what happens out there. Can we get another win here for Valentin Bruffer, or will someone else have a strong showing at Suzuka? We've already seen that the amount of people that win, there aren't many repeat winners. So your bets are on someone new winning here in Challengers.
Yeah, I mean, certainly very possible. As you say, we've seen a lot of different winners across the different platforms, and we might see a new one. Suzuka's a very different circuit. It was built at a very different time compared to a lot of other tracks, and it's very, very unique in the way that the challenges are presented, the changes of direction, the high speed, the downforce, the limited overtaking locations. It's going to be great.
It really is, and you can see there just some of the corners there on the track map then as we take you through some of these legendary corners, through the Degners, through the Casio Triangle, through the Hairpin and through Spoon Curve. It's time to take you on a hot lap.
Hi, this is Kevin Magnussen from Haas F1 team. I love Suzuka circuit because it's a real driver's track. It's an extremely fast circuit. It's really a historic track and lots of great races in the past. Can't wait to go there again. So let's have a look at the onboard camera. So here we go, preparing for the lap. The exit here of the last corner is turning a little bit, so getting on power is kind of difficult with the traction. First corner is a flat out entry. You turn in with full throttle, you just close the DRS manually before turning in, and then you just try and avoid too much understeer mid-corner. The next part is these S's that are probably one of the best sections of any track in the world. Just really brings out the best in a Formula 1 car with all this downforce. Flat out here, entering another great corner. You just get off the throttle, brake a little bit. Next one is more braking, tricky. If you lock up, big chance of going off the track. Another corner where you enter on steering on the wheel, so you very big chance of locking up the front wheel. Going onto another great corner, entering extremely quick. This whole track is just fast, and again very difficult to get into the apex with the understeer. Important to get back on power early and get a good exit because of all this long straight you have after. So this corner is 130R. It used to be a very challenging corner. Now it's easy flat. Big braking into the last chicane. Again, try and get back on power with this turning exit, and off you go, finish the lap.
Great lap there from Kevin Magnussen, just taking us through this legendary circuit, as he called it, and rightfully so. Built in the 1960s by Honda. Yes, it was built as their test track originally, and the original design of the track was going to be 3 parts of the track that overlap each other, obviously using bridges. They wouldn't just overlap the track through and through, but it does have one feature that most of these circuits, in fact all of the circuits on any F1 calendar, haven't had since. It's the only figure of 8 circuit on the calendar. Nice little bit of a fact there going in towards the race.
You get really close at Baku. You get the 2 parts of the track that are really, was it after like turn 7 or something like that, where you can kind of see, but someone would have to be really far behind you for you to see them going the other direction. And plus, actually, from how low down the cars are, I'm sure the drivers never see each other at that point. But yes, as you said, this is the only one with that crossover. Which you would think kind of helps with the tire wear because it's equally left and right corners, but I don't think that's actually the case. It's been a while since I've actually driven, but yeah, I do think one side ends up getting more worn than the other side. It's not a perfect sort of 50-50 situation. So, but yeah, it's interesting that we're going from Monza to Suzuka because they do have one very similar feature, which is the Degners and the Lesmos. They're back to back, the 2 right-handers, and they're somewhat similar. There's a little bit of elevation change at Suzuka versus Monza, so they're not exactly identical, but they do share that one kind of similarity between the 2 of them. And I'm sure I'm not the only person in the world that's referred to a Lesmo as a Degner and a Degner as a Lesmo and all that kind of stuff. I'm sure there are lots of other people that have run afoul of that.
You won't be the first, and you won't be the first, and you certainly won't be the last. That is absolutely sure, Justin. But yeah, the Japanese Grand Prix here, Suzuka more specifically, has decided 11 championships in Formula One. That's 11 drivers' championships. The likes of Damon Hill have been crowned a champion here. Mika Hakkinen, Michael Schumacher, Sebastian Vettel, all have been crowned a champion. And of course, there's 2 drivers by the name of Prost and Senna. You might have heard of them. Both of them have been crowned a champion here at least once. So it's a circuit that's got a lot of history, a lot of heritage behind it, and a lot of championships have been decided right here.
And no controversy at all whatsoever surrounding any of those title deciders.
Couldn't name a single controversial incident, especially around the late 80s, early 90s at Suzuka. Couldn't name a thing.
No. There was also another not incident, I think, that happened with Michael Schumacher retiring once at Suzuka, and a title championship I think was involved around there as well too. Apologies to the many Schumacher fans around the world for reminding you of that day, because I imagine it's still probably quite painful. But yeah, it's it's such an important circuit. It really is. It represents a very different part of Formula One as a non-European race, but being so old as well too. It's a classic non-European race, and those are rare. Interlagos is another one for sure. Mexico as well. Oh, look at that! Now this is interesting.
Overcast conditions here for Suzuka as we've got standing shake-up on the left-hand side. Gives you a brief idea of who's out on top, but we'll see here Vasta Racer, winner of the last round at the Italian Grand Prix. Let's see how he tackles the Suzuka circuit. Onwards we go then through the S-curves then, left, right, trying to make sure that you keep the aero with you all the way through here. And make sure you don't treat those curbs too badly because they could spin out on you through then the Dunlop curve, then up the hill we go and over the crest through that flying left-hander, onwards then towards the Degner curves. Pretty much full speed through the first Degner, then slow it down, slight camber under the circuit we go then on towards the hairpin, where we're braking, slowing the car down. Then Kamui Kobayashi loved to move down the inside at this particular hairpin, and the crowd loved to see it happen. Through the long right-hander then as we head our way towards the spoon curve, which the long left-handers await you here. Fully on the throttle before you get to these left-handers. Just going down the gears, trail braking wherever you need to. Try and pick up the apexes when you go through. Using a little bit of curb on the exit as well to try and open up the corner and exit and carry a lot more speed through. Now coming towards 130, I used to be able to have to lift here. Now you go through here absolutely flat out. That, pedal is fully to the floor. In towards then the Casio triangle. Just trying to make sure you get those curbs. No more bump here as we head our way through the final corner and onwards towards that start-finish line. It is going to be Vasta Racer on pole position, picking up exactly where he left off. And look at that once again, 600ths of a second, 6,000ths I should say, of a second separating Vasta Racer and Timon. Wow, what a lap then that was from Vasta Racer. He's got yet another pole position.
Wow. Wow. Incredible stuff. He is really on fire today. Great to see Timon a little bit more competitive as well. Again, Timon really seemed to struggle at Monza. I was surprised about that one. Unfortunate for what is that? Four drivers that were not able to set a time. So Prennan's was the slowest out of everybody that did set a time, and he put in a 1:36, which is definitely not an accurate lap time. Well, I'm sure it's accurate, but it's not representative of what he's actually capable of, obviously. So a little bit different, but yeah.
I was going to say Diego Rossi's still out there somewhere. 12th place, Boss is still out there somewhere.
I was wondering why we're still watching this Ferrari going on. Yeah, speaking of unrepresentative lap times, I think it's been a few minutes at least on this one. It is all equal cars before anybody goes making any sort of Haas jokes or anything like that. Every car is completely equal in these races. So, I'm not sure what happened with that one. Maybe he stopped to grab an ice cream or something.
Yeah, making his way now towards the line. He'll get 12th place.
You don't say.
Really? Yeah. Well, there we go. He will start from 12th place, that is for sure. But there we go then. So Vasta Racer is on pole position. And I think, to be honest with you, we've got a scenario here where I don't think throughout entirety of Challengers have we had more pole positions by a driver than Vasta Racer. He's got the majority of them on the PS4 side.
Interesting. That is quite the stat. We do still have Boss driving around. I'm sure whatever is happening right now, we're figuring it out. We've got top minds on the case already, but we'll get to the race ASAP. So don't worry about that. But in the meantime, we get to enjoy Boss 92 driving around at Suzuka. So we can all enjoy that for now. But yeah, that is a heck of a performance from Vasta Racer. Again, Timon more along the lines that we expect from him. Dario as well, continuing that good form. From that 4th place finish in Italy, he'll be qualifying in 3rd position, starting from 3rd position for the race at Suzuka, with Matthias down in 4th position. Domi in 5th, a little bit further down probably than he would have liked. I'm sure he would have preferred to be on the front row or the 2nd row at the very least, but he will be joined on the 3rd row by Petrix in 6th position. So Schumacher really far down as well, coming off that incredible finish in Monza, only 8th quickest for him in the McLaren.
Yeah, and we have seen, it's a little bit of inconsistency with Olstadt. We know he has his favourite circuits out there, but if it's another circuit that he's just not quite so confident on, he does start to fall down the order. And that sounds like it's harsh, because it is. You're talking about 2-3 tenths off the pace there, and you are well down the order in 9th, 10th, maybe even 11th place. You and I, Justin, wouldn't stand a chance against these drivers. We'd probably get close to the 107% time, as I think a lot of us would. That's how quick the guys are.
Yeah, absolutely. It would not even, yeah, it really wouldn't even be close. Yeah, many seconds per lap is what I would be losing out on. Probably lapped within, by the time DRS is activated at some of these circuits. So yeah, it's extremely competitive this year. We've touched on it already. I'm going to touch on it again since we have a little bit of time. And Martin Stefanko confirmed it for us. He was among the first crop of F1 esports drivers, because amazingly, F1 esports hasn't been around for as long as F1. It really feels like it sometimes. It feels like it's just that old staple, but it's only been 4 years since, not even 4 years since the very first season of F1 esports started. So it hasn't been that long, but it's incredible the way that it's progressed and the speed at which it's progressed, and how fast these drivers are now compared to what they were like even just a few years ago. But it's great, especially that these guys are able to dedicate so much time and put in so many hours of practice. I forget who it was now, but I touched on at the last event the driver that took the screenshot after they had hit 1,000 hours on F1 2020. And you and I have talked about this before, Kieran, just how much work it takes to get to this point. And it's really, it made things great for us though, for us at home. The high level of performance of all of these drivers has just really upped the performance value of F1 Esports Challengers in 2021.
Just if you were wondering, 1,000 hours, that's 41 and a half days. Putting in lap times, trying to make the best of yourself. Cool. 41 and a half days in total. That's a long time.
And it hasn't been out for that long either.
No, that's the great thing. That's just how much time and effort these drivers will put in to making sure they are at their peak, at their, improving, always finding a tenth of a second where they really need it most. People underestimate how, you can jump on this, jump into this sim racing malarkey and think you can do well when you come up against drivers like these and you find out, actually, that's not gone so well. I'm totally not speaking from personal experience. Let that be known.
And part of that is down to the improvement of leagues. There's so many leagues across the various F1 games, and there's more leagues than there's ever been before, and more drivers than there's ever been before. And it just means that there's lots of opportunities for these guys to hone their skills between F1 esports seasons, because there are these nice long gaps between the end of one F1 esports season and the start of the next one. So in order to stay sharp, all of these guys, I would assume all of them, are joining a league and running a league in order to stay at top form and to make sure they're going up against the best and the fastest of drivers that the F1 games have to offer out there. And it's those leagues out there, they've gotten quicker as well too. So and that's, I would say, a big part of it as well. So the extra competitiveness that we're getting from leagues has kind of bled over into F1 esports, and it's just made things that much crazier, and it's really for our benefit. And we're preparing to go racing now. The clock is ticking down, and Kieran, take it away for the start of this first race in Japan.
With absolute pleasure. We now await onto the grid then. The cars are all ready and waiting. We've been waiting long enough. Let's get this race underway then with those 5 red lights very, very shortly. We count up then to the start of this Japanese Grand Prix. It is 5 red lights. We're racing, and what are the starts like? Good start then from Buffer, but an even better start from Time and Shooter. He's going to be up the inside of him, down in towards turn 1. He's got the inside line, and he's taken the lead. Time and Shooter leads the Japanese Grand Prix. What a start from Shooter there. Vastaracer drops to 2nd place. Leveche's up to 3rd place then. Good start from the driver in the Haas there. Dario Yamalo is in 4th place then. Matthias is in 5th. And there you can see Olstad going round the outside of Petrex then, going through the S-curves before we head through this long left-hander up towards the Dunlop curve. And Schumacher started in 8th place then. He was 6th at one point there, but he's now dropped back down to 7th, so net gained 1 position there. Still a good start then from Olstad as we now make our way underneath the track then on towards the hairpin. What a start from Time and Shooter. He means business.
Incredible. I think we're already seeing more action than we saw at Monza, which is, again, the exact opposite of what I would have expected. But a nice clean start. IGK Boss 92, I'm going to assume with some sort of hardware problem, just didn't even get off the line. Thankfully, didn't have any cars behind him, I don't think. So there was no issues getting off the line. So that's why everybody is within DRS range as we come to the end of this opening lap. Still got 14 cars remaining in this race. And a few changes of position going on at the start of this one. But yeah, it's nice and clean up at the front. It was great to see that battle into turn one.
It really, really was. And you saw there, Shooter just got the perfect launch there. Exactly what he needed to do. Get the move done. And bear in mind, he started on the dirty side of the track. There's often a lot of debate all the way back to the late 80s when Ayrton Senna raised the point that if you started on that right-hand side, you are on the dirty side of the track. That's where pole position used to start. So the fact that Shooter was on the dirty side of the track, still got that great launch, it just shows you what a great start that was from him.
Really, really impressive stuff. It's difficult to be that good on that side of the circuit, but really, really impressive stuff. Still having a look at Petrix, who, by the way, looks like the most racy out of everybody here. He's really all over the back of Matthias here. Really thinking he wants to try and pick up a position here on board with Duncan in the racing point. He's not going to be close enough to do anything into the hairpin as the cars all close right up through that low speed turn 11 as they accelerate now down towards Spoon Curve. Of course, completely flat out through these right-handers. No stress whatsoever for the drivers as they get heavy onto the brakes and down to fifth gear for the double left-handers of Spoon Curve, picking up a little bit of dirty air effect. But then, of course, they'll get the slipstream all the way down towards 130R. Schumacher picking up the slipstream off of Petrix, though, so he shouldn't come under attack from Duncan. But yeah, some nice even gaps all throughout the field. Prinens, though, it looks like been into the pits, I assume.
Yeah, and that's Klasani. Yeah, it does look like he's been in the pits 19 seconds off the next car. Unfortunately, I think we've lost Diego Rossi at this moment in time. We'll have to come back and confirm that. Don't think he's actually himself in that car. But we now go on to lap number 3. DRS will now be online, but the first chance the drivers will use it is pretty much right at the end of this third lap of the race. It's Time and Shooter in the lead. Valentin Bruffa is in second place. Domenico Lavecce is in third. Yemelo in fourth, with Van Erven in fifth place. Good start from that top 5. Really kept it clean as well. Dario Yemelo and Matthias dropping a position, but to be honest with you, in the grand scheme of things, still in that top 5, still where the big points are awarded in this late stage of the season is good for them for sure. That's Gianpetro Olgiano in 6th place. It's Marcel Olstadt in 7th place, finished second at Italy last time out, now in 7th place, but he is up a position from his starting position of this race. Duncan Hofflin is in 8th place. Simone Yamotti is in 9th place, and then that is Hämäläinen rounding off the top 10. He was the first retirement out of the Italian Grand Prix last time out. He is now inside the points and looking to make a point.
Yeah, exactly that. And DRS is active now, of course, on lap 3. Great start by Domi, by the way. Really impressive to see him move up a couple of positions at the start like that. It'll be very interesting to see when people start pitting. Are we going to see the soft runners coming in already at the end of lap 3 here? It would be a little early, but we might see somebody go for an undercut, something like that. But no, it looks like, oh yeah, a number of cars into the pits actually, but none of the front runners.
No, they're staying out at the moment in time, as we've got Yemelo who's come into the pits, Yamotti also in, Olstadt in, and I think that is Olgiano also into the pit lane. Not necessarily in that order on the standings, because the pit lanes or pit boxes I should say, are so varied across the pit lane, of course, that the names will just keep on changing. But there is Prinens, that's Nicholas Klasani, who has set the fastest lap of the race. He might be able to get a couple of positions here, because when you exit the track, it's very narrow going down towards turn 1, especially if you want to run side by side. But there is your leader right there, Time and Shooter, followed by Valentin Bruffa. Domenico Lavecce up 2 positions from his starting position, so 5th to 3rd from the very start. A great start from the Italian.
Gamer62, by the way, filling in this week, currently running in 7th position, the first of the medium runners as well, currently in 7th position in that Red Bull. He's just slipped outside of DRS range of Name Changer, in fact, but he's done a great job of clinging onto the back of the soft runners. And I think the battling up at the front has maybe helped with that a little bit, but We saw the soft runners really break away at Monza. Actually, the medium runners just could not keep up. But I think the battling and just the nature of the circuit potentially has just helped out the medium runners a little bit. Gamer 62 in that 7th place position. He actually is back within DRS range of Name Changer, so he could be on for another good points haul actually, which would be his 2nd of the day. Oh, heavy onto the brakes, into the pits. Nardi does get it all slowed down. No pit lane penalties from anybody that I've seen so far.
No, really good from them as well, especially if it's downhill and bumpy on the entrance in towards the pit lane there. Very easy to lock a brake and not slow it down in time, but it looks like it's so far so good. So that obviously means, Justin, we've cursed at least one driver who hasn't pitted yet to then receive a 5-second penalty for exactly that.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm sure whoever it is will not be happy about it whatsoever.
We've got Petrux in trouble. He's fallen down the order. We've got yellow flags somewhere in Sector 1, and he has fallen down to 14th place. We've got Yamotti, who's left the session. Is that going to be related to what's happened to Petrux there? We'll have to see if we got a good camera angle on that one. Meanwhile, then Oldstadt is in 7th place, pitted early, went onto the medium tyres, and there is Petrux then, who is well and truly in the barrier. That looks like, was that at the Degners, or was that at the Dunlop curve? Quite difficult to tell.
I think so. Yeah, I think you're right. I think that was just after Dunlop.
Well, it's a shame to see him out of this race. Fell down the order. We're still not sure why, but he is now out of this race. We're down to 14 runners. Timon Shooter is the leader of the 14 runners right about now. Valentin Bruffer in 2nd place. Van Erven is in 3rd place, as Shooter and Van Erven both into the pit lane. Bruffer stays out. Wonder what that's going to be then, because Matthias obviously, Matthias and Vasta Racer, they obviously share a pit box, which is not ideal when you're trying to be title rivals, but that's the price they have to pay. They have to be just in that position. They're going to have to sacrifice whoever's the leader. You would think has the advantage of pitting in first, but not this time for Bruffer. He wants to stay out.
Yeah, that's very interesting. We'll see if that works out for Vasta Racer. Oh, the closing speed. Oh, heavy onto the brakes, the back end. Duncan hitting the back of Schumacher. I didn't see any carbon fiber being shed from that racing point, so I think he may have just gotten away with that one, because any kind of front wing damage at all at Suzuka would be hugely punished. You really don't want to be missing any of the aerodynamics, especially at the front.
Shooter rejoins in 3rd place, Levecche rejoins in 4th, but Matthias Van Erven rejoins in 6th place. He's rejoined behind Yamalo, and that was 2 laps between the 2 of them pitting as well. So Yamalo now into 5th place, so Van Erven's got his work cut out for him to make some overtakes out on the track. But we're approaching half race distance here at Suzuka. Bruffer, who's yet to stop, is still leading the way. Guillaume Darunia is in 2nd place. He's also yet to stop at this race, but he's 8.5 seconds off the leader of this race. It's Shooter in 3rd place. He's the first of the runners to have stopped. And there goes Vasta Racer into the pits then from the lead. So in theory, Shooter should take that position back, but it's going to be mighty close about the positions behind him.
I think it is going to be really, really close, actually. I'm really interested to see how this is going to work out. We're having a look at Schumacher, who is involved in that fight, not that far off, just a little bit further up the road is Timon, Domi, Dario, etc. And he's making his way down the pit lane there and looking for the Ferrari, not seeing him. Vasta Racer is going to be further up the road, actually, but a little bit further back. Some side-by-side action into turn 1. Inside line for Falcon Nardi is going to see him move ahead of Name Changer on those fresh softs.
Yeah, that's Bernardo Perez. Perez now moving up into the points, and that's Ville Hämäläinen moving outside of the points. 10th place now for Nardi, as we see then Van Erven, 6th place then. We did see that timing screen went a bit, up and down when it came to Timon and Vasta Racer, but Timon has rejoined ahead, and the gap, really, it looks like it's a tenth less than it was at the start of that pit window. So pretty much match for pace, both strategies, but it's Shooter who's still out on top. That's all he really needed. Stays ahead of Valentin Bruffer. Domenico Levecche will be in a net 3rd place once Guillaume Darunia comes in for his mandatory stop. It looks like, I think, every single driver has made at least one stop, apart from our race leader right now in Guillaume Darunia.
Yeah, exactly right. I gotta say, I'm really, really curious how this is going to play out. Vasta Racer with the 1 lap fresher tires relative to the cars around him, especially relative to the Mercedes in front of him. But again, overtaking locations are so limited here. It's completely different from Monza. This isn't really one of those situations where we expect the car in second to just wait behind until the final lap and then pounce for that position. I rather expect as Gil does peel off into the pits at the end of lap 7. I rather expect that Vaster Racer is going to be looking to make the overtake literally anywhere that he can. He is going to be just on the hunt for any possible potential overtaking opportunity here. And I would say he probably needs to do it sooner rather than later because, of course, being the car behind, he's really going to struggle to keep his tires at a reasonable temperature and to keep that tire wear under control, especially through these types of high-speed corners. It's going to be very, very difficult for him. So he's going to be looking to make this overtake as quickly as possible. At least if I were his race engineer, I would certainly be telling him that. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. Domi's right behind as well too, coming off a very difficult race in Italy. So Domi might be looking up to make up some lost positions or lost points from Monza previously after a DNF. So yeah, maybe he'll look to involve himself as quickly as possible too.
Well, we were in a sort of deja vu scenario here. We've been in a position where Vaster Racer has been behind the race leader with a few laps to go. He's made the move on the final lap, but that was at Italy. Here we are at Japan. Will that work the same as that is Nicholas Clasani picking up a 3-second time penalty? That will be for multiple track limit warnings. Let's see then, riding on board with Bruffer then as he tries to chase down Timon Shooter as we enter the 9th lap of this race. We have 5 to go here at Suzuka. And you can see there, Bruffer's just staying in contact with Timon Shooter as we make our way now in towards turn numbers 1 and 2. Then we make our way through the S-curves. We've got Levecce there. You can just about see him in the mirrors as we ride on board with Vaster Racer. He's still looking to try and pick up a couple of positions. I have to say, though, Dario Yemolo, 4th place yet again in this race. Talk about consistency, eh?
Right? I mean, he clearly has found his position in the championship because, yeah, that is, I mean, he was 7th coming into it, but it seems that he's fourth quickest now after 2 really, really strong performances and just outside the podium position. So again, it's another one of those finishes where, you know, maybe it doesn't seem like it's going to get you noticed, but it does when you do it back to back like that. You know, and certain teams anyway are going to be looking for consistency, especially if they have one kind of hot shot driver that, you know, qualifies really well and is more likely to pick up some wins. That they might want another driver that's just, you know, consistently picking up points and very different sort of personality to their driving. So, you know, he's kind of cementing himself as one of those guys that can go to very, very different circuits and still pick up double-digit points, and that is going to be appealing for some teams.
Yeah, as well, for Yemolo, 2 podiums so far in Challengers up to this point, so he's not done a bad job whatsoever riding on board then with Bruffer, and it just looks like Shooter's doing enough, using enough battery to just about stay ahead before the braking zone in towards turn 1. Well, he's got to do that at least 3 more times because, of course, on the last lap, we'll just have to do it the once, if that makes sense. It probably didn't. It made more sense in my head. Point is, though, Shooter is leading the way, but he's got 4 laps to try and hang on to it. We've already seen Vaster Racer make a move on the final lap of a race here. So Shooter, I think, will have seen that, and he'll be ready for that.
Yeah, for sure. And honestly, it's more of a braking zone for turn 2 these days than it is for turn 1, if we're honest, because, yeah, you're really carrying a lot of speed through 1, and it's not until you're closer to 2 these days that you're actually getting onto the brakes. As we look a little bit further back, it seems that Falconardi on those softs has kind of met his match, unfortunately. He was able to overhaul Name Changer quite easily with that tire compound difference, but he's caught up to the back of Gamer62, who is on the exact same tire compound and the exact same age of tires as well. And unfortunately for him, he's looking like he's in a very similar sort of situation as Vaster Racer, where he just doesn't quite have the overspeed in order to make the overtake, or even to get alongside, if we're honest. He's within a couple of car lengths through 130R, but it's in a very short run down towards the Casio Triangle. No DRS or anything like that to really help him out. And then, yeah, through the Casio Triangle, going to carry as much speed as he can and close up as much as he can. But again, he just can't quite be close enough on the straight to actually think about making an overtake. Gamer62 still about 2.7 seconds adrift of all of those medium runners. So At the moment, it really seems like 8th is the best that either of these drivers are going to be able to do. And then it's another 2.8 seconds. It's about 2.7 seconds actually on either side of this pairing. So aside from Gamer62 and Falconardi, they really don't have to worry too much about the cars around them, it seems. So they're just going to be dueling it out for that 8th place position and deciding who's going to come home with 4 points and who's going to come home with 2 points, or potentially, if one of them gets fastest lap, 5 or 3.
And I have to say as well, Samuel Corby, obviously in 8th place right now, called up at the last moment, and still running in 8th place. Not a bad drive from him at all. 2 points finishes here in Challengers when, I think he was only told today that he was actually driving as a reserve because of that late call from Perez for that broken wheel, unfortunately. So he hasn't had a lot of time to prepare, but I still think he's doing an absolute stellar job out there. He has got Nardi Perez to keep him company all the way through, but we rejoin here the battle for the lead, because look at this. Bruffa has really closed up to the back of Timon Shooter, and you can see here Shooter's trying to break that slipstream as much as he possibly can, saying to Bruffa, you'll have to do it round the outside if you want this lead. Bruffa takes the invitation and takes the lead with it. Goes into the lead of the race right about now through the S-curves. But I don't think Shooter was fighting as hard as I made out there. I think he realises that he's got a chance of DRS to get that position back on the last lap. What Bruffa will have to do now is push as hard as he possibly can to negate as much of that effect as possible.
Yeah, he's going to be absolutely draining that battery in an effort to try and put as many tenths between himself and the Mercedes behind as he possibly can. Or he's going to be hoping that the likes of Domi or Dario can start applying some pressure to Timon, and that would help him as well, too, as Eel's race goes from difficult to worse as he picks up a 3-second time penalty. That's going to make scoring points even harder for the Racing Point, currently down in 11th position. But yeah, I think you were right about that one. It really seemed to me as well that Timon wasn't fighting that too hard. Maybe he just ran out of ERS deployment. It was just no way that he could possibly defend that anymore. And he's allowed the position to be taken on the penultimate lap. That gives him 1 lap to try and close up the battery. But look at this, 0.8 of a second into the Casio Triangle. I don't think that's close enough. I don't think there is enough corners in this race to overhaul that deficit. Look at that, 0.9 of a second as he starts the final lap. What a lap from Vasta Racer.
What a lap indeed from Valentin Bruffa. And look at that. Look how far ahead he is as well. Making our way now in towards the first 2 corners. So he knew exactly what he was doing there. Yep. And Timon Shooter just cannot respond. Bruffa out in the lead then by 0.7 of a second. That's really the last DRS they really get. The DRS, of course, is the detection in towards the Casio Triangle, right on the apex of the Casio Triangle. But it doesn't get activated until we're about 25-30 meters from the start-finish line and where the checkered flag will be. So there's really not really enough time for Timon Shooter to give a response. Even if he could, he's almost a second off the pace at the moment, almost a second behind Vasta Racers. So this is really tough for Timon Shooter. I don't think he'll be too sad about it, because he'll still be leading the series as we head towards the closing stages. What he's got to be careful of is Domenico Lavecchi, who will certainly try and move in towards 130R. Are we actually going to see a move into 130R? Are we going to go back to the mid-2000s and see a move round the outside at 130R? Is Lavecchi going to be close enough? We're riding on board with Domenico Lavecchi. He's going to make him go round the outside. Domenico Lavecchi round the outside at 130R. Can he hold on? Yes, he can. Get second place, but Shooter wants that position straight back, but he's running to the side of the Haas, and there's carnage behind. Meanwhile, Valentin Bruffa will come round the final corner to take the win. It's back-to-back victories for Valentin Bruffa there in Challengers. And Domenico Lavecchi takes second place. Matthias Van Erven gets third place. But where is Timon Shooter? He comes across the line in 10th place. Wow, what a finish to that race. What happened to Timon Shooter? Well, whatever's happened, he's only getting 1 point out of this race when at worst he was going to get 12. But Vasta Racer, Valentin Bruffa, back-to-back victories here in Challengers. No other driver across all the platforms has done that yet. What a drive. And again, another strategic drive. He knew exactly when to overtake and exactly when to push. Great drive.
Did he get fastest lap as well, too? Because that was a mega lap that he was on right at the end there. And, of course, the car really, really light with fuel. on the final lap of the race. So I do wonder if Faster Racer might have picked up the fastest lap there. Nardi or Gamer... Oh, Nardi got ahead of Gamer 62 at some point in all of that. So in that battle, I mentioned before that they had a gap ahead and behind. Yeah, in the end, coming out on top on that one. But yeah, Faster Racer may have potentially picked up the fastest lap of the race. I would be very curious to see how that worked out. I don't think there's going to be any sort of penalties for him, though. Faster Racer did an incredible job. Absolutely fantastic stuff. But yeah, I'm interested to see if maybe Timon's going to get that 5-second penalty removed, or again, you know, we had that another incident where we didn't have the best of views, so it's difficult to try and say who may have been at fault there. We were the camera was kind of at the apex of the final corner, and we were just kind of like looking up and backwards at the Casio triangle, and we could really only see one car as they were side by side. So it's difficult to say, and it was Domi who had the inside line through the final part of that chicane, so we could see Domi there. But if it were to finish like this, that would be huge, actually, for the championship standings.
It really, really would. And to take you through those standings at the end of this race, it was Valentin Bruffa who gets the first back-to-back victory here in Challengers. Domenico Lavecchi finishes in second place. Matthias van Erven in third place. And then it is Duncan in fourth place. Schumacher in fifth. Nardi in sixth. Gamer, once again, seventh place in back-to-back races. Nice job from him. Dario in eighth place. Name Changer getting a couple of points on the board as well in ninth. Timon falling down to 10th place. Gil in 11th place there as one of the last of the finishers. Nobody in the top 10 got the fastest lap of the race, which means, and there we've got a replay of what happened here. So we saw the move around the outside from Domenico Lavecchi, but what happened then? Timon looks for a move down the inside, looks like he runs into the side of the Haas, and then there's this carnage behind. We've got Duncan who was caught up in that one. Sorry, Dario was the one who was caught up in that, spinning all the way around. He fell all the way down the order as well. So, well, two instance stewards will really have a look at here. We've got Matthias here. Well, he just thread the needle, grabbed the podium. That's exactly what he did, and went home and got the last step of the podium. Well, I have to say, there's worse ways of getting a podium, that's for sure. But if you have to thread the needle, that's an absolute another way.
Yeah, Matthias just saying, "Oh, well, thank you. Sure, yeah, I'll take that. Why not?"
He almost hesitated, didn't he? Should I
yeah.
the podium? Okay, all right, no worries.
I mean, if you insist that I pick up 15 championship points, then I guess
I guess, yeah. That's
I suppose I will.
Yeah, but you have to be there to get the podiums. And another podium for Matthias van Erven. You can't take that away from him whatsoever. Fourth coming into this, fourth in the series coming into these two races. That certainly would have given him a boost. What I will say, though, is Valentin Bruffa started tonight on 54 points. Provisionally, he's got 50 points to his name. 104 takes him well within that challenge for the top spot. And of course, though, that top six battle, how much will that be affected over these last two races? Of course, we'll have to have the stewards' inquiry and make sure these results are official before we bring them to you, or as official as they can be before we bring them to you. But we'll have a better idea going into the last two races for PS4 next month about where and who we need to be looking at.
You touched on Vasta Racer picking up the two back-to-back wins. It's especially helpful for his championship because Timon and Domi both had a bad race today. Timon only picking up the one championship point as the standings stand for Japan right now, and Domi picking up 0 championship points in Italy. So both of these guys had difficult races for this fourth and penultimate event. And Vasta Racer, Valentin Bruffa, just picking up a couple of wins as well. Just an absolutely enormous points haul for the Ferrari driver. Yeah, as you mentioned, back-to-back wins, which is not something we have seen so far this season in Challengers. So really, really impressive to see. And you have to say, that's definitely going to get him noticed by the teams that are watching. So the representatives from the various teams that will be inevitably making their choices come draft time, their ears are definitely going to be perking up, like you just said, walkies or something, after seeing back-to-back wins. Again, the first person to do it this season. That's definitely going to make people interested.
I'll tell you what, Matthias van Erven, hadn't finished in third place through the entirety of F1 Esports Challengers. He gets 2 tonight. one in Italy and another here at Japan. I mean, that's absolutely fantastic for Van Erven. A real good sense of consistency. And, well, he might have been running in 5th before the incident. He certainly wasn't after it, grabbing that podium where, you know, sometimes you just have to be in the right place at exactly the right time.
Yeah, exactly. That was wow. That was pretty crazy, I have to say, that racing. And you know, it's because of the lack of overtaking locations and because how late it is in the season. I think if we had come to Suzuka earlier in the year, it would have been a little bit cleaner. But the fact that it's the third to last race, people are getting desperate now. So we're not late enough into the season where people are like, oh, I've got no chance. We're still in the season where people, you know, have enough opportunities to claw their way into 6th position, even if they're not in the top 6 right now. But we're late enough in the season that there are not many opportunities to make up for any sort of mistakes. So we're at that weird transition point where desperation is giving way. You know, previously they would have been cautious, but now they're just like, I need points if I'm going to get into the draft. And stuff like that. And so it's just made things that little bit more crazy when it comes to finding opportunities and battling and stuff like that. So I gotta say, I'm a little bit surprised that Time and Shooter fought that so hard, especially how comfortable he was coming into this event with his points haul. He had 96 coming into this weekend. So I'm a little bit surprised that he fought that so hard. I thought he maybe would have just let him go by, but no, he went for that inside line at the Casio Triangle. But you know, maybe it's because of that gap, he can afford to lose some points, and you know, he's still going to make it into the top 6. We can only speculate when it comes to the mind of a racing driver. So, you know, we don't want to get too deep into that. It can get a bit sketchy.
Yeah, championships have been decided at the Casio Triangle before.
We did mention that.
Couldn't tell you when, obviously, but they have been decided there before. However, with Time and Shooter, yeah, you're right. He's been comfortable with not finishing on the podium before. So it was a little odd to me that he went for such a desperate move at that point, considering how much of a lead he's got, and considering the fact as well that you just need top 6 to progress to the next stage. Shows you the competitive nature of these drivers, where if they fall outside the podium, they're just not having it. They want the podium. They feel like they, as you say, they need those points. They need those podiums. I think like Shooter here, maybe, you know, a little bit too aggressive going in there, a little bit too desperate from what was our series leader coming into tonight.
Yeah, we did mention before today's broadcast, though, that we thought that Timon and Domi were the only 2 drivers coming in that were probably safe in the top 6. Both of them had over 90 points coming into this. So even if they failed to score points at all 4 of the remaining races, we think they still probably would be in that top 6. And maybe that's starting to play on his mind. I'm not entirely sure. Again, we can only hypothesize when it comes to the logic of racing drivers, but yeah, that may have played a role in it. Yeah, it's interesting. But yeah, it means great things for the championship, though. It's going to be quite close, especially if that 10th place finish in Japan holds for time. And again, he could potentially have that penalty removed. It's difficult to say, even from the angles that we saw, what exactly happened at the chicane. Keep in mind, the 5-second penalty that he was given, I don't believe was for contact with Domi. I believe it was for contact with whoever hit him after the contact with Domi. And the stewards might see that there's a case to remove the penalty for that incident, and there was no penalty for the incident with Domi, so that would move him up to 5th or 6th or wherever he was when he crossed the line at the end of the race, prior to the 5-second penalty being applied. So it'll be interesting to see how that all works out. It may be a long one. It may be a case where we end up telling you to check social media afterwards, potentially. It does look like, again, we're not going to have any drivers. The PS4 drivers are too shy. They don't want to talk to us. Or maybe they're just all yelling at each other after some crazy races.
They're sending us a sign, Justin, you know. Maybe we should stop texting them or whatnot. To please, we want to interview you. No, they're just not biting. But that's fair enough. They don't have to. They're probably off now to just sort of have a cool down and debrief and unwind after what was pretty intense racing out there. I don't think it did it justice, us showing you how much the drivers put in there. I mean, we've already talked about how, you've got drivers putting thousands of hours in to, put themselves at the best possible stead coming into these races here in Challengers. But what you don't see, and what it doesn't really translate into, is you see how close those cars are out there, but the effort to keep on that pace, to be as consistent as they are, and to keep the mistakes down to an absolute minimum, that takes such dedication to actually, prevail in that.
Yeah, it really is impressive, the skills that these guys have developed over the years, and so young as well too. So many teenagers in Challengers as well, and they'll only get faster as time goes on as well. And there's going to be more unknowns, more people that come out of the woodwork in later seasons, and these are the guys that they're going to be going up against. So there's people at home watching right now that maybe didn't quite make it or didn't even attempt to qualify for this year's, who will actually be competitors next year. And that's why we always tell people to give it a shot, because you may be one of those genetic freaks of nature that are just unbelievably fast, who we are all ultimately super duper jealous of, who are just, effortlessly fast. Your Lewis Hamiltons and Sennas of the world and so on, and just, the people that get behind the wheel and they're just unbelievably quick. Those people are probably watching at home, because that is what happens for a lot of these guys. They go from a spectator to being behind the wheel. And this year has been proof positive that it just gets better and better with every single year. So I'm really looking forward to the rest of the season. I'm looking forward to next season. I'm looking forward to the 2021 Pro Series season as well too, because of course you and I, we're not just commentators, we're fans as well too. And when the Pro season kicks off, we're both going to be watching every single race from start to finish.
Yeah, no doubt about that. That is for sure. And we'll see if these drivers can go all the way as well. That's the great thing as well. You're watching these drivers in Challenges. You're watching them being put through their paces, what with the one-shot qualifying, what with short qualifying, these quick-fire races as well. Not a lot of turnaround time for these drivers to actually recover from the last race straight into another one. So, you're really testing how on the ball they are. You're really testing how much nerve they've got about them as well. When we come into these final two races next month, and when we come to the points being displayed on social media towards the end of the night, possibly into tomorrow, once the stewards have finalised their findings, you'll start to see then we've only got maximum points of 52 left to score on the table for the PS4 drivers. So you're now going to start to see that gap between the top six become ever more crucial. Those outside the top six will be keeping one eye on how many points there are actually left to score in this series.
Yeah, and different circuits as well too. Circuit of the Americas, Yas Marina for the final two circuits. So that's going to make things really, really interesting for these guys. And I know, both those tracks can be a little polarizing sometimes when it comes to how drivers and fans feel about them and stuff like that. Certainly, I think it's going to be, again, another fantastic showing. We've had nothing but great racing so far this season, and I fully expect that trend to continue no matter what track we go to. It looks like the results are in. So, wow, they must have been drinking coffee today or something.
Absolutely. Well, let's bring you some of the results that the guys have managed to put together for you. So, of course, we'll head to the Italian Grand Prix first. Valentin Bruffa taking a win in Challengers. Marcel Oldstadt finishing in second place. Matthias van Erven with his first third place of the night. Dario Yamalo in fourth place with Timon Shooter running in fifth place. Duncan Hoffland in sixth with Samuel Corby in that sort of maiden appearance. Got 6 points under the belt then after the first race. Bernardo Perez in 8th place. Guillaume de Rugna in 9th, and Diego Rossi rounding off the top 10 and scoring that lone single point. As you can probably tell from the point standings, no one got the fastest lap of the race that was inside the top 10, so no bonus point on offer. Nicholas Clasani is in 11th place with Simone Iamotti finishing in 12th. Gianpetro Oggiano, Domenico Lavecchi and Vilet Hamalainen falling victim to retirement. Hopefully now we'll bring you the results of round number 8. Of course, at the Japanese Grand Prix, Valentin Bruffa, back-to-back victories for the German. and that puts him in really good stead for the standings later on. Domenico Lavecce in second place, Matthias van Erven with his second third place of the night. Duncan Hofland in fourth place with Marcel Olstadt in fifth, Bernardo Perez in sixth place, Samuel Corby, that man again, he's in seventh again, Dario Yemelo in eighth place, Wilhelm Leinen scoring some points on the board, and Timon Shooter rounding off the top 10 with that lone point. Again, no fastest lap inside the top 10, so no bonus point. Guillaume Darunia in 11th place, Diego Rossi in 12th, Nicolas Classani in 13th, Yamotti 14th, and Gianpietro Oggiano finishing the top 15. Well, that means there's only one more thing to do. Drum roll, please. Here's how things look after 8 races, 4 events. It's Domenico Lavecce taking the top spot. Timon Shooter in second place by 3 points. Another 3 points then separates Valentin Bruffa. Then looking at the rest of the order, Matthias van Erven with those two podiums puts himself now up into 4th place. A lot of points for him on the board. Marcel Olstadt in 5th. Duncan Hoffler now rounds up the top 6. Dario Yemelo starts those outside the top 6. Javier Perez in 8th. Nicolas Classani in 9th, and Guillaume Darunia rounding off the top 10. Now bear in mind, 68 points was that gap to 6th place right now. Let's see, Bernardo Perez in 11th place with 32 points. Isaac Hajar is there in 12th on 30 points. Gianpietro Oggiano in 13th on 14 points. Samuel Corby, great showing from him, 12 points on the day. Very respectable point scoring form for him. Diego Rossi in 15th there, and Yamotti rounding off the end of the result there. So I will have to say that unfortunately, although Samuel Corby put in a great performance today, he is unfortunately out of the title running, and out of that Challengers running, only 14 points there. Drivers that have got fewer than 16 points on the PS4 side are unfortunately out of the running for a spot in Challengers. So you can see that field is now being whittled down. I think there's about 11 drivers left in the running for those top 6 positions. It's going to get very dicey towards the end here.
Yeah, again, I touched on this before, but the desperation really starts to sink in as you get closer and closer to the end of the season. So people are going to be going for moves that they wouldn't have gone for event 1 and so on and so forth. So it's just going to make things that little bit more interesting. Of course, again, we've got Abu Dhabi and Circuit of the Americas. But before we do that with the PlayStation guys, of course, we've got to go back to the circuits that we were at today for the Xbox and the PC guys, and 4 more races still to go this week that I am very, very much looking forward to, especially after such a confusing and different sort of, like, again, I really expected both of the races to go very different today. We'll see if tomorrow's races are a bit more traditional. It's going to be very interesting to find out.
High octane, action packed, instant filled, and that was just your commentators. The races have been fantastic as well, and hopefully you'll join us at the same time tomorrow. Let's make it a day. Tomorrow, 7 p.m. British Summer Time, for the Xbox edition of these races. We'll bring you up to speed with all the championship standings, and of course bring you the coverage of the 2 races as the Xbox drivers try their hand at these legendary circuits of Italy and Japan. Justin, just your final words here then on what has been a great night worth of racing. Is there anybody that stood out to you tonight?
You know what? I want to give a shout out to Sam Corby, Gamer62. 7th is exactly 1 position lower, you know, and he was just filling in today and stuff like that. But if I were him, I'd be thinking next year. Yeah,
it's got to be next year, Sam. Keep
Yep.
it up. Great driving.
You got this.
Absolutely. We hopefully will see you next time around. But it was great to have you. Great performances as well. Well, that just about does it for our broadcast here tonight. Hopefully you've enjoyed the action, and hopefully you've enjoyed myself and Justin bringing you through the action. A big thank you as well to the team behind the scenes working as hard as ever. We'll see you tomorrow night for the Xbox then, 7 o'clock British Summer Time. For myself, Kieran McGinley, and Justin Sutton, it's been a pleasure to be with you tonight, and we'll see you again tomorrow. Until then, have a good evening. Good night.